All right, today we're jumping into something really fascinating. It's a radical idea that started with just a single off-grid house in West Africa, but it's blossomed into this potential blueprint for a whole new way of living. It's a concept that seriously challenges everything you might think you know about home, community, and technology.
But let's just start with a question. What if a building, a home, could do more than just put a roof over your head? What if it could actually actively heal the wounds of a colonial past? Well, that's the provocative idea behind an experimental off-grid habitat being built in Kenema, Sierra Leone.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the habitat itself. Then we'll dive into the pretty deep theory behind it. We'll meet the advisory council that was brought in to really test the idea, find out what the ultimate goal of joyful creation really means, and then we'll wrap up by looking at why any of this matters for the future. Okay, so let's set the stage. We're in Kenema, Sierra Leone. Now, this is a place where you can literally see the legacy of colonial resource extraction written right into the land and its infrastructure. So the project here isn't just about patching things up. No, it's about imagining something completely new, from the ground up.
And this vision has a pretty cool name, Promutopia. Now, don't think this is some back-to-the-land fantasy about ditching all technology. It's the total opposite. It's about seizing technology, taking it back from huge corporations and state grids, and using it to build a self-sufficient, empowered local future. You know the myth of Prometheus stealing fire from the gods for humanity? Well, that's the core idea right there. It's about taking power, and I mean that literally and figuratively, from the gods of the grid so you can build your own world on your own terms.
What's driving all of this is a mindset called Afro-optimist acceleration. And the key thing to get here is that this isn't about looking backwards or romanticizing a pre-colonial past. And it's not just another story of survival either. It's about grabbing technology with both hands to aggressively build a new, empowered, and distinctly African future.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But how in the world do you actually build a promo-utopia? Well, it turns out the blueprint isn't just about architecture. It's deeply philosophical. It's a complex model called, get ready for this, the double transversal transjective quadratic model. Or, thankfully we can just call it delta t squared for short.
Right at the heart of this model is this powerful idea called the transjective. It basically challenges the way most of us see the world. It says that you, your subjective self, and the world out there, objective reality, aren't two separate things. Instead, you are constantly in the process of co-creating each other. So to put it simply, in this kind of world, you don't just live in your house. You and your house, and the land it's on, and the tech that's running through it, you're all part of one big, single, evolving system. You are all creating the experience of living together. So this delta t-square model lays it all out across 4 interconnected planes that are all tangled up with each other. You've got land, which is the ecology, body, which is about health and ancestry, tech, our tools and networks, and spirit, our values and beliefs. The whole system only works when these 4 are in a constant, dynamic, healthy balance.
Now, of course, a theory this ambitious can't just exist on paper. It has to be challenged, right? It needs to be stress tested. So to do that, the project put together a kind of virtual advisory council, bringing in top thinkers, artists, and scholars to really try and poke holes in this blueprint.
Their whole job was to ask the hard questions, to find the hidden flaws. To ask the big one. Can a blueprint that looks this good on paper actually survive contact with the messy real world? They were there to make the idea stronger.
And their feedback was incredibly practical. For instance, Sonia Bailo Alou pointed out that all this optimism can easily paper over real historical trauma. So her solution? Build trauma-conscious infrastructure, spaces that are intentionally designed for quiet and predictability. Then you have Francesca Ferrando asking this wild question, who gets a voice here? And she argued that for this to really work, democracy has to include the river, the soil, even the AI, treating them all as active members of the community.
And the advice just kept rolling in. They challenged the whole idea that humans have to be at the center of everything. They pushed for the habitat to be a kind of educational ecology, where kids can learn directly from the living systems all around them. And, crucially, they warned against it becoming a tiny surveillance state, saying you have to build in privacy and the right to rest from the very beginning.
Okay, so after all this dense theory and all this expert critique, you gotta ask, what's the point? What is it actually supposed to feel like to live in a place like this?
Well, that experience has its own unique name, playlosoda.
It describes this joyful, active, even playful process of constantly creating and adapting to this living system. This isn't about that old idea of work-life balance. It's about completely dissolving that boundary. It's the engine that's meant to build an entirely new culture.
There's this quote from the source material that just perfectly captures the soul of the project. The goal is the joyful recomposition of the human through a living field of God, land, tools, kinship, ecology, and intelligent restraint. See, it's not about just surviving, it's about joyfully becoming something entirely new.
So, here's the bottom line. All that complex theory, all the high-tech systems, it all serves one simple human purpose. It's about giving people the tools and the freedom to joyfully write their own script for a new way of life.
And this brings us to the big picture question. Why does a single experimental habitat in Sierra Leone matter to the rest of us? Well, because it's so much more than just a house. It's a blueprint for rethinking our entire relationship with technology, with nature, and with each other.
And you can see the fundamental difference right here. The old model, the one many of us inherited, is all about extraction. It's human-centered, dependent on the grid, and designed from the top down. This new model is all about co-creation. It's about a multi-species democracy, radical autonomy, and bespoke tech that evolves with nature, not against it.
So what are the big takeaways here? First, it's a total rejection of one-size-fits-all infrastructure. It's about blurring the lines we've drawn between humans, nature, and technology. It's about using technology to actually heal historical trauma, not just ignore it. And it shows that joyful adaptation can be an incredibly powerful creative force. Ultimately, it's a blueprint for what's called a maintenance-based utopia, a vision for a better future that isn't some final destination, but a living system that needs our constant care and attention.
And that leaves us with one final massive question to think about. The Kanima hyperorganon is a blueprint for redesigning a home to heal history. So if that's possible, even in theory, what's stopping us from using these same tools to redesign the future for everyone?